Well, Gavin, this next story, I feel like you're the perfect man to really walk us through. You not only are an anthologist of BreadTube and anybody who's had adjacent relationship to that world, but you are also a bit of a Egyptologist. You're a little bit of a man who's familiar with lore and conspiracies from the brain dead portion of the internet, and it seems like the Venn diagram has, in a perfect circle, intersected. And you're here to walk us through the sad state of affairs that the anti-vax movement has had to pivot to.
Yeah. So this is a pretty, I think this is a real sign of the times we're living in. This a sign of where the internet's at, where just like, people's intellect and, general level of discourse is at right now. Because apparently some of the commentators who made a name for themselves and made a lot of money off of the anti-vax discourse and, constantly ad nauseum talking about the vaccines and Dr. Fauci and the World Economic Forum and all this stupid crap, right? All these conspiracies. They've pivoted into something that's even less serious. Why? Because no one really gives a fuck about COVID anymore. It's yesterday's news. No one wants to dwell on that dark period in recent American history. People are ready to move on. But if you were the kind of person who was going to be interested in that avenue of content in the first place, well, there's a good chance you're going to be vulnerable to other stupidity as well. And that's what the likes of Jimmy Dore and Kim Iversen have realized. Let's take a look at what they've now begun to dabble in. It's not like this recently just happened in the last day or two. It's kind of been on this trajectory for a while. But I mean, here's an example of what Kim Iversen is now posting. Ancient cover-up. Here's why they're hiding the truth about the Egyptian pyramids. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the kind of guy who just looks at this and immediately writes it off. I sometimes enjoy this style of content myself. I've even defended the likes of Graham Hancock, on the show. I like that kind of content in a vacuum if you just kind of view it as entertainment. Right. If you're just kind of like, I'm going to go down the conspiratorial rabbit hole and find out about the Anunnaki and the ancient race of hyper advanced, civilized, whatever the fuck, there's some fun in that. It's pretty harmless. I think unlike the anti-vax conspiracy, for example, you can believe it and it doesn't really have any consequences, right? You're not going to die of COVID because you believe that ancient aliens existed or whatever the fuck, right? It's kind of just a fun thing. It's why I like conspiracy theories. The same with aliens in general, honestly. You can go down that rabbit hole. You can look into aliens. You can, listen to the whistleblowers and you can buy into it fully, but ultimately it's not really going to have a consequence. It's not really going to result in any real world harm other than maybe just believing things that aren't necessarily 100% true.
If you're smart enough to know that it's usually just like for fun, right? Like when I was younger, it was really popular to watch the YouTube show of Action Bronson watching Ancient Aliens while he was getting like really stoned. You know what I mean? And I think it was like Vice that commissioned him to do something like that. But it was like a really early proto reactolog that he was doing. And he would just get like globbed out of his mind and like, be like, wow, the aliens built the pyramids. Like, you know what I mean? Like Bigfoot is real. Like, let's go look at, all of the evidence for Sasquatch or the Blair Witch or like whatever the fuck. Like that shit is all harmless to me. Like, I don't really see too much
Sasquatch too. And I get it. Like some people make valid points, anti-intellectualism, is not a good thing. It's going to lead to societal. Okay, you're probably right. But guess what? I'm not a fucking moron. I can delineate between entertainment and, news information content, right? I'm not a fucking idiot. Sorry that a lot of people are, and they don't know what's right and wrong and true and false.
That's why we have a job.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't explain our answer for everyone. I'm just talking about myself and my personal enjoyment. I personally feel that I can watch a video like this and enjoy it, whatever, be entertained by it, and know the difference between that. What I think is different, though, because again, I mentioned someone like Graham Hancock. He's basically spent his entire career dabbling in this sort of shit, right? He first came onto the scene in the late 80s with a book about trying to find the Ark of the Covenant, right? That's kind of been his beat for my entire lifetime and beyond. Kim Iversen, though, and Jimmy Dore, these people less than 5 years ago were pretending to be authorities whom you should listen to on serious subject matters like the COVID-19 vaccine and public health at large, right? These people were not presenting themselves as, I'm going to track down the Ark of the Covenant, right? 5 years ago. No, they were saying, you should listen to me instead of your doctor. You should take my medical advice instead of the person who you've probably been seeing and consulting for years as your medical professional, your trusted doctor. Trust me instead. That's what this fucking lady was telling you. A day in and day out on the Hills Rising and on her own show, she would preach that and say, no, don't listen to the public health advice that's going out there. Listen to me instead. I know what's best. And here's a million stupid conspiratorial rabbit holes to go down that actually will totally, destroy any trust you had in the few institutions which do exist to protect you. Right? It's crazy. And now with zero respect for her audience, the same audience that she led like a Pied Piper off that cliff, now she again is just insulting their intelligence by trotting this out and treating it with the same level of seriousness. If you watch this video, she's acting like this is real. She's acting like this is just as serious of a thing to talk about and something that you should pay attention to, in the same way that her conspiracies about, Dr. Fauci and the vaccine and all that bullshit were important to pay attention to. And that's where I do find it to be not only dangerous, but also just straight up insulting, again, to all those people that did take her seriously during that time. Imagine being one of those people. And now you see this and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm a real mark, huh?
You know what? I pray to God, if there is one, Gavin, that the people in her audience are having that reaction, because I messaged you the other day and said, I think they might be booking flights to Cairo, Egypt. I think she might have the audience captured enough to just be, manipulating these clapping seals who, because their lives are dog shit, because they see all this corruption happening around them, it's really easy to mislead people into nefarious fucking conspiracy theories. And I know that Gavin gave the disclaimer, we're not anti-conspiracy theories, but I do think when you're a person like Kim Iversen who wants to pretend that you're a news host, that's way different than what Gavin described as a Graham Hancock, right? Like back in the day, Joe Rogan and Duncan Trussell had a show on the Sci-Fi Channel where they went and hunted for Sasquatch. Like, I didn't think that was particularly problematic. That's a fun way to spend the afternoon. At that time, Joe Rogan was like a harmless comic who wanted to eat mushrooms, smoke pot, and walk around in the Pacific Northwest with his buddy. You know what I mean? That's good content. But when you try and present as an authority on something and you're not just smoking pot and, talking about shit, this is where Joe Rogan went wrong, because he tried to be like a legitimate authority on shit, and then he would also have these just like crazy crackpots on and validate them, right? And it becomes really problematic. And I think it just shows that people like Kim Iversen, people like Jimmy Dore, who went down the anti-vax rabbit hole, who relied on an audience that just wanted to be let in on a secret, right? Who just wanted to have knowledge that nobody else knew. And wow, I'm so much smarter and, better than everyone else by being in on this or whatever. They've just pivoted to giving them something even more ludicrous, but potentially more the high entertainment value. And that's the calculation that they're making either way. After you've put out a piece of content like this, you can never take Kim Iversen's actual news or political analysis serious ever again, if you were going to before then, which you absolutely should not have.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I would even defend some of the Sagar and Jetty style UFO coverage, because there actually has been like the congressional hearings and the whistleblowers. What was that one, alcoholic wife beater or whatever?
That was
David
interesting. I don't remember. Yeah,
David Grush. There was a New York Times article about the UFO shit. Like this is like if we did a segment about crystal skulls or something. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Get Dan Aykroyd in here.
Yeah, exactly. This is just some fucking like Indiana Jones shit, which again, I'm a huge fan of Indiana Jones, but that doesn't belong on the same channel as someone who again was trying to actually seriously give you medical advice, and advice contrary to that your doctor would have given you like 2 or 3 fucking years ago. But Kim Iversen may have actually been one-upped as far as the embarrassing, pivot into just straight up insanity. Because take a look at Jimmy Dore, who released this Rumble exclusive. Leaked footage shows flight MH370 sucked into a wormhole. And here, I'll show you guys the thumbnail on that as well. Wait, one sec.
Okay.
For some reason, I hit share, but it didn't go. Either way, here's the thumbnail, and we'll watch some of the video. It was sucked into a wormhole. Like, this is literally some shit you'd see in like 2004 on the like tabloid, paper next to the grocery store checkout stand. Remember, you used to see shit like that? It would just be like alien found in Nicaragua or something, like crazy shit like that. This is no different than that. But it's literally being broadcast again to an entire massive audience of people that Jimmy Dore just convinced not to take a fucking vaccine. It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw this and I honestly, I had to take a step back and wipe my eyes. and look at it again, because this is a Malaysian airline apparently that was like, and it's just like, it's so stupid. I won't even go into debunking any of this stupid horseshit because it's not worth the oxygen that I would breathe. But here's the one thing I will
can't
say.
debunk this. Maybe it happened. Maybe it actually happened.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm afraid of his ideas. No, the reality is there is a ginormous conspiracy that you could be digging into if you wanted to and not be batshit crazy when it comes to airlines. And that's the fact that Boeing keeps whacking whistleblowers. Okay. If you wanted to get in on that and be like, wow, I'm following a beat that nobody else is following and not lose your reputation if you had any left, clearly Jimmy's not worried about that. And we, as we pointed out earlier, I don't know if we showed it on screen, but you guys can see here 1.16K views in an hour. Not exactly cleaning up over on Rumble, not exactly cleaning up on YouTube either. So clearly he's probably getting paid by someone to put this kind of horse shit out. Jimmy never discloses his finances. We know at one point he was getting paid handsomely by Peter Allard, a billionaire, as he relentlessly mocked and maligned anybody else who was being paid by billionaires. But yeah, the reality is that if you wanted to follow a real news story, yeah, this is crazy, guys. EMF blocking beanie, block 5G, Wi-Fi, sleep better, think better.
That's what Tim Pool wears, bro.
Bro, it's crazy. I've been telling Gavin. Okay, so Gavin and I, we are pretty rigorous intellectual guys. Like, I'm not jerking us off. We're not the smartest guys in the room, but we're not going to fall for a lot of stupid shit. So we both think it's funny to watch the dumbest idiots on YouTube. And there's one guy, his name's Paul Saladino. He's a medical doctor and he lives in, I think somewhere in Central America. I think he moved to Costa Rica or some shit like that. But he like built a Wi-Fi free house and he's like, I don't want the Wi-Fi interfering with my sleep. So I plug everything into an Ethernet cable. I'm like, you are dumber than dirt, sir. You are an absolute fucking idiot.
Yeah, no, this is crazy. The Rumble ad, EMF blocking beanie, blocks 5G and Wi-Fi. That's literally like they just, is it filled with tin foil literally like underneath the beanie cloth or whatever? That's crazy. But here's another good one too. Top cardiologist begs quit eating blueberries before this out. One of the objectively healthiest foods, a genuine superfood if there ever was one of the most antioxidant rich things you can put in your fucking body. Quit eating those. Yeah, this is so fucking dumb. I can't believe people actually watch this shit, but it is sad, as you mentioned, Zach. I guess we have enough media literacy and internet literacy to know what's true and what's not for the most part. A lot of the people in Jimmy's audience, they grew up when there was still lead in the gasoline, guys. They don't have that mental acuity anymore. They're brain dead. They're fucking about to die, right? They're very vulnerable to this sort of scamming. And it's really shitty that Jimmy Dore, again, not that he specifically plays these ads, but that he'll go on Rumble and then he'll sell shit like anti-aging coffee to a bunch of people that are about to die. It's deeply fucking immoral and unethical.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point where it's not even profitable for him in the sense that like he's growing his career. Like he's gotten to the point where like this clip got 20,000 views on Rumble. I mean, Gavin, if you pull up his actual just Rumble show, you guys can see he's not doing well. It's not like he's pulling out this massive audience. And also, guys, I've seen a lot of people, point at and provide circumstantial evidence that these numbers might even be artificially inflated on Rumble across the board. People who I know who have like close proximity to Rumble have said like those numbers are fake. Like don't look at any of those numbers. It's like looking at Twitter views and counting that as like a real metric. It's totally
They're lying to you about controlling the weather.
Bro, this is about chemtrails. Like he's literally doing like chemtrail content. RFK is getting rid of synthetic food dyes. Meanwhile, he's also getting rid of anybody that would actually like scrutinize and regulate what's in your food to begin with because of FDA layoffs. Like, you know what I mean? There's going to be like less scrutiny at the FDA, but don't worry. He's also banning Red 40 because he thinks it gives your kid autism, not because he cares about any of the other stupid crap that they're eating.
Also, that Red 40 thing, it was like a recommendation. They're not even actually forcing any food companies to take it out. They're just recommending that it gets taken out. So it's basically meaningless. But yeah, I mean, this is Jimmy's whole channel now, guys. He literally, after the anti-vax thing dried up, his channel is leaked video shows flight, MH370 sucked into wormhole. The government has Star Trek warp drive technology right now. That's crazy. I did not know that.
Bro, Gavin, the government, man, has a car and it runs on water, man. Yep. They have a car that runs on water and they don't want any of us to have it because then we'd use all the water and drink beer, man. Then we wouldn't stand for this, man. That's a literal That 70s Show bit.
Yep. And also something else that's worth noting about a lot of this stuff with the weather, they're lying to you about controlling the weather. UK approves dimming the sun. What could go wrong? What this actually is just a massive distraction so that you don't focus on climate change, right? Because, yeah, of course, people are anxious about the climate and the weather and stuff. So Jimmy wants to talk about that just through this lens of straight fucking quackery and bullshit instead of what's actually happening, which, of course, is at the, behest of our capitalist system and the big oil companies and plastic industry and all this other stuff, which is the actual fucking conspiracy. But it's more fun to talk about, the Jews controlling the weather. And again, this is all adjacent to the Marjorie Taylor Greene space laser thing. Oh, they started the fires to do a controlled demolition and the Jews are going to fucking, conspire to bring in the new world order. It's all of this crap, right? All of this crap. But yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Yep. Apparently he's live for 2.49K people on Rumble right now. So let's see what he's got going on over there.
At my salon suite.
Yeah, the ads over on Rumble are fucking crazy, dude.
Your suite. Create your
All right, look, fucking that, dude.
To
Fuck
see
that.
the extraordinary.
Just starts a new ad. It's like, all right.
I'm making our audience watch this swill.
They need to know the truth about the beanie that'll protect them from 5G. You don't want our audience to be protected, Zach, from the 5G.
Oh yeah, it looks like he's on break anyway, so who fucking cares?
He's probably drinking a Negroni.
Yeah. Well, Gavin, it is 1 o'clock in Los Angeles.
That's Negroni time. Either way, yeah. I sure hope no one in our audience. I sure hope you guys all believed us instead of those losers when it came to the subject of COVID. I'm glad I'm glad that that's all over. I'm glad we don't have to talk about fucking vaccines and COVID and all that crap. Like, it's not something I ever enjoyed talking about because I'm not a medical professional. I didn't go to medical school. I could never even dream of being a fucking doctor or anything like that in a serious sense. So, I'm glad to not have to talk about it. But again, imagine listening to those people. Imagine listening to those people and now seeing the sort of bullshit, just unapologetic idiocy that they're promoting, that they're dabbling in. I mean, again, they have no respect for their audience. They have no fucking respect for their audience, guys, because they were really trying to make you believe that everything they were telling you a couple of years ago was serious shit, right? And now this is what they're doing. The pyramids and the crystal skulls and the fucking 5G. It's like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, it really just shows that the people that we thought were grifters were the biggest kinds of grifters. They knew they could find no bottom. They were just willing to do anything for a little bit of cash and a little bit of attention.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The Vanguard will be there.